OUSD is selling the front of that they're full-service community schools, which they're not. This is how you start. This is what transparency looks like. Know that we're here to serve the community. And when you say that you want every student to thrive, you don't leave people behind. We're going to offer classes starting on Tuesday because Monday is a holiday. But Tuesday to Thursday, we will be active in this building. We will be teaching 21st century literacy because we know that our kids need to excel and they need to be able to support their families to come and to see. And in order to see it, you got to be able to take the step and initiative to do it.
My name's Love. Makes me sad because this school's been open for a long time, and they're basically like trying to take away one of the best schools, so they could like make more like schools and make more money. But I think it's not fair. I want the younger kids to know that Parker is always going to be inside their heart because Parker was a great school.
My name is Frankie Velez, and I'm here today to support the community, support the justice community, to help to emancipate and liberate ourselves as human beings, as people who are searching for our own path, and to no longer be oppressed. I mean, that's why I'm here, and I have 2 babies. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old.
I'm Lisa Nesson. I'm a parent at Sequoia Elementary in Oakland in the Diamond. The issue that brought me here is that the Oakland Unified School District has voted to close multiple schools in the district, including Parker. This is one of 4 schools that's either being closed or consolidated this year, in addition to a number of others next year. And the community here is reoccupying this space for the community.
I'm Linda Suff. I'm a speech-language pathologist. I work at Horace Mann and I work at Markham Elementary as well.
And you were talking about the school district, what they're doing and how these cutbacks are affecting the education, the students, the teachers, the parents.
So Horace Mann is one of the schools that's slated for closure next year, and we believe that they are cutting our enrollment prematurely. I have at least one parent who has told me that they have been dissuaded from enrolling their kindergartner in our school. And we lost 2 excellent teachers, a minimum of a loss of 2 excellent teachers. There may be further loss. And it's gutting our school already, so it's a loss on top of a loss.
And how is this affecting the kids? Your job is to help them maneuver in this COVID pandemic and the crisis, the economic crisis. It seems all these pressures now, stress.
I think that the adults have been doing an amazing job of protecting students, and so, but especially the older students definitely feel it, and they have big concerns for their younger brothers and sisters. And the middle school and high school students whose little brothers and sisters go to our school are very worried for their siblings and for their families. They know that it's going to be so much harder to get the kids to school on time regularly. And then it'll be,
These are people who don't have a lot of money.
Right, they don't have money, they don't have cars necessarily, they're trying to walk their kids to school. Just the danger of walking kids to school in East Oakland cannot be underestimated.
What is the danger?
There are so many students and families that have been killed walking in the streets of Oakland. The way that traffic is, it's very dangerous. And so to increase those distances, it has a huge impact on our students.
I mean, the school board, are they aware of the dangers to the students?
Well, we've told them. We've told them again and again. They don't appear to be listening.
And there's a $46 billion surplus in California, or $96 billion surplus in California. So much wealth, 180 billionaires. How does it feel when you've got so much wealth in California, yet they're closing schools in Black, brown communities where kids are suffering?
It's enraging. It's just simply enraging. Our kids deserve a safe school in their neighborhood. They do not deserve to be shuffled around all over Oakland or pushed out of Oakland altogether. We had our one-day strike that...
What happened in that strike? Why was it called?
It was called as an unfair labor practice strike because the district went back on agreements made both at the board meeting and within collective bargaining. the best of my understanding. And it was voted on, I'm sure, because we all know the value of our public schools, and we're all united in resisting privatization and resisting our schools being closed down, and these impacts falling on the students who need the most support and care, and not this disregard.
And while they're closing down schools, the school board has also approved opening up or expanding charters. Is that part of their plan? I mean, why would they open up charters when they're closing down public schools?
Well, that has been a long trend and, growing trend of opening more and more charter schools and pushing more and more kids into charter schools and just out of Oakland in general. And it is driving gentrification. I think the district has used the excuse of gentrification as like, oh, well, there's nothing we can do but close these schools. And yet these practices intensify gentrification. And this, of course, hurts the students, like I said, that are always the ones that are hurt, right?
Kimberly King. I'm a psychology faculty at Laney College, and I'm here I represent in the Laney Poor People's Campaign. And I'm here because all students deserve community schools. There's no reason for them to be shutting down these schools. Oakland is a very wealthy city. They need to, if they can't afford it, they need to find a way to tax corporations more. It's ridiculous. All kids deserve a school in their neighborhoods. They shouldn't have to go far away to find schools. Why is it okay for rich kids to have private schools with small numbers of kids in the class, but when a poor school has less than 25 kids in the class, oh, that's too small? That doesn't make any sense. If anything, the poor kids need smaller schools more.
Community colleges, how are they being affected?
Oh my God, it's really horrible. Also, the Laney is cutting so many of its classes, and not just Laney, but all the Peralta colleges. The union and the students and the faculty are trying to fight against that, but the chancellor just thinks for some reason that we should be cutting classes, even though it's been a pandemic. Of course enrollment has gone down. That doesn't mean if we keep cutting classes, that's going to guarantee that we'll have low enrollment, which is going to guarantee that we're going to keep having low enrollment. If students can't get the classes they need to pass, then in order to get their degree, they're going to start going to other districts. And as you know, City College of San Francisco they laid off 38 tenured faculty. I've never heard of that happening. Tenured faculty in addition to 130 plus part-time faculty.
My name is Victoria King, and I'm also a member of the Laney Poor People's Campaign. I'm here because in 2012 I was one of the workers at Maxwell Park when they closed Maxwell Park down. And I went there as a child. My kids went there. The neighborhood kids went there. They had to go to Allendale. They have to walk across High Street, which is a really dangerous street, in order to get there. It caused a lot of problems for the parents, and now it's a school, but it's not for the neighborhood kids anymore.
And what's driving this? Who's behind this?
Well, I think that the city's behind it, the real estate is behind it, corporations are behind it. Speculators coming in, taking pictures of these schools before the kids are even off the campus. It's sad. And
the developers want this land.
They want the land, yeah. And then they'll start building up around here. They'll tell us they can't build in West Oakland because it's toxic, but they don't care that it's toxic for the climate, so it's been toxic for years.
My name is Shane. I am a teacher in Oakland Unified School District. I teach at a high school. Teachers, parents, students, other community members all, kind of joining together in this effort to stop the school closures of not just Parker, but also the other three that they're trying to close at the end of this year, or they have closed essentially, and then also the 8 or 9, however many they're trying to close next year as well. Public school, there's 80 or so and about 40 charters at this point, and they're saying, they need to close another 40 public schools. Well, that tells me that it's the charter schools that have siphoned off enough of the enrollment to, give them the justifications for this plan to close all these schools, as they cite low enrollments. And they cite the need to pay teachers and classified staff more, which they've never committed to anyway. So that we think is just somewhat of a BS argument. The one-day strike we held was a ULP strike, unfair labor practice strike, and it was obviously addressing the school closures. In the process of these school closures, a coalition emerged called SLAP, Schools and Labor Against Privatization. And so we worked, throughout that coalition in order to kind of organized a strike. You know, we reached out to longshore workers who were also part of the SLAP coalition, and they did a stop work meeting on April 29th. So that day, excuse me, Steve. So that day, all public schools in Oakland were shut down, as well as the Port of Oakland was shut down for the morning shift. And then teachers set up community pickets at the end of the day for the evening shift. So the port ended up being closed. The Port of Oakland ended up being closed all day in order to fight against these privatizations. The main goal, in this state of the Democrats, seems to be to, try as best as possible to make sure the labor movement is divided up. So the building trades, who hold a lot of, have a lot of workers and have a lot of sway in the Alameda Labor Council. So there you saw why I think that, they've been for this ballpark. To be go by. John Fisher, who's the owner of the A's, also heavily involved in the privatization of public schools through a charter network called Knowledge is Power program, and he might have some other organization.
KIP and Rocket Ship.
KIP and Rocket Ship. So that's where the longshore, the coalition with longshore made sense is they're fighting this privatization of their Howard terminal, and as teachers are fighting the privatization of their sites. We decided this day of action would be good because the longshore were going to shut down on May 1st, as they annually do for International Workers' Day. In this instance, so we could also participate in our day of action together, they decided to do their stop work action on the 29th, which was the Friday before International Workers' Day. So it ended up being a really powerful day, other than the longshoremen who unfortunately did not know what was going to be going on that night and took jobs, and then they lost a day's pay. I did hear that some of those workers were not too happy, but I think that the broader message is that sacrifice a day of pay now in order to maintain your obviously this work at the port, because should John Fisher get to go through with his plans, it's very likely that the Port of Oakland, as we know it, will no longer be where the longshoremen will be allowed to work, as billionaires and millionaires don't tend to want to live around a bunch of heavy industrial port work. I think the issue is that because teachers play this role of reproduction, I think teacher strikes are strong and powerful, and they do there tends to be somewhat of a crossroads of the working class, but it also, teacher strikes tend to be kind of hard on other workers. So I think, in general, we want to see more, solidarity between other unions, because we need to involve other unions that are involved in kind of the production and the circulation of commodities. And so, that day, specifically April 29th, the port closed all day. Millions of dollars were lost by the employers, sending a strong message that we are not for this privatization. And neither should they be, though, as the PMA, as I've heard, is also not for the stadium.
And there's a $97 billion surplus in California. Why hasn't the CTA and the CFT demanded that go to public education? California is 39th in funding. It sounds like their silence, they're not really fighting for full public funding.
Well, I think their silence is based on, one, yes, not wanting to fight, but also very much, they've been very instrumental in kind of the proliferation of charter schools. There's cushy legislation for the charter industry, Prop 39, which allows charters to claim underutilized spaces in public schools. This is how you get charter schools that are co-located with public schools. My site, Sojourner Truth, we share a campus with 2 other public schools and also a charter. So the Democratic Party and the Republican Party definitely agree on privatization of public education. I think they want to do it in a little different ways, where Republicans are just, all for vouchers and bringing back more religious, fundamentalist, crazy Christian religions. And then the Democrats, they want to, through neoliberalism, they want to bring in these charters. Obviously, charters tend to be anti-union, which is always good for the ruling class parties. So, it's one part destroying the labor unions, and the other part is, seeking easy ways to profit, which is through testing and tech companies that get these cushy deals. They also get these deals in public education too. So privatization not only happens through charters, it also happens through those deals, those contracts that go out. OUSD is overspends millions of dollars on consultants every year and outside contracts.
Repealing the charter school law, do you think the union should take that up, the education unions?
100%. Yeah, if it wasn't for the charter school law, the charters would be illegal in California.
My name is Jayciana and I'm 13. And I came here today for Parker just to help out and support. Well, we've been here for a week already. We've been sleeping here, and we're just trying to have people come out and support us. So for the community and for me too, this school has been here for a long time, and especially for the community around here, it's gonna be hard for the kids to go to school because this is the one school that everybody walks here and comes here. So my sister, her name is Jemiah, she's been here for 5 months and she loves this school. So it's closing and it's sad. That's another thing, that they're opening more charter schools instead of public schools, but I feel like the money is not the problem. It's just that they don't want us to have this school. They say that there's not enough kids here, and there's supposed to be 300, and there's only 200 something, but I feel why does it matter? It doesn't matter. There's so many schools, there's FAR schools. I go to a FAR school. My school is already all the way in 105th, and I have to go there every day. So it's there's so many FAR schools, and there should be this school should be the main one here, because there's only a little bit of schools left.
Gennaro Balltrip, I'm a local 10 member, and I'm a community member. I live in the Oakland area, and I don't like the fact that the schools are being closed down.
And the ILW has joined with in a new organization, teachers, students, called Schools and Labor Against Privatization. What is that organization about?
SLAP is just dealing with the fact that our community is being gentrified. Things are being taken away from the public means, like schools. Schools are being taken away from the means of the people, the things that we need in the community to bring life to our community, to educate our people in our community, to give the youth opportunities in the community. And if you take away their education, what are they going to have? It's like a prisoner pipeline system, and then you want to bring in a ballpark in an area where there's noise 24/7. There's an operation going on with container ships, and we need goods, we need commerce, we need things coming in and out of the Bay Area. So it's we have to look at what's really important. The things that we need are schools to educate our youth and to educate our community so we can build a stronger community. And then we need places to have adequate jobs, like longshore positions.
And these are union jobs, good paying jobs.
Yes.
That's what's threatened with this ballpark.
Yes, the ballpark is being a threat.
Why would the city council vote for that? Because, it sounds like 80,000 maritime workers could be threatened by that. And these are black and brown workers on the port.
I'm not certain why would someone vote like that, because to me it has no logic. It has no sense in it. It just, why would you vote to an industry that's bringing in goods and services to the area, to supplying basically the Bay Area and the northern area and some of the southern area too. And it's why would you try to interrupt that industry? Why would you mess up your imports and exports? That's not a lot of common sense sometimes. And they say common sense ain't always common, so maybe that's what it is. They just don't have a lot of common sense. We have bananas coming in there, we have meat, we have products, all kind of products coming through there that we need, and we need to export to other people too. It don't make no sense of trying to make something smaller, and then there's an operation actually taking place at Howard Terminal right now. And if you go there, there's truckers lined up and blocking the streets now. So if you try to build a ballpark there, how are you going to bring in all that rebar and all of those things that you need to build a stadium? There's no room. There's no room. There's no space.
And the city council voted to give also approve the environmental impact report and to give $850 million in tax money. That was approved by Bonta and Nancy Skinner. These Democrats have been supported by unions, and yet they're voting for tax money for a stadium.
as being a person that pays taxes in Oakland, I even have a business in Oakland I have to pay taxes on. I don't want to pay for a billionaire's playhouse. I don't want to pay for people to have extravagant parties and things like that. I don't know what to say, but I just don't want to pay for that because I'm a longshoreman. I work there, and I know it's loud there. If you build condos right there, people not going to want to listen to that noise. They're going to be down at the city council or wherever they could go to say, hey, we need you to stop building, making all this noise. And then they're going to want the whole port closed down. It's a domino effect. That's not cool. And us paying taxes for someone else's adventures, that doesn't make any sense. He has billions of dollars, and the companies and corporations he has money. Why don't they pay for the things that he needs, and he could do it right here in East Oakland? They already closed down half of the streets in East Oakland back in the day when they put the stadium there on intimate domain. So there's no need to come in there and try to take intimate domain in West Oakland and things like that. I'm a member of SLAP because this is something that I want to be involved in. I'm a member of SLAP because I see the connection between schools and laborers. We're hand in hand together right now. We're dealing with some privatizers that are trying to come in and take over schools, and they're trying to take over the port. So right now, that's why I am particularly a part of that.
Your union has endorsed SLAP.
Yes, we are with SLAP. There's a lot of unions involved in SLAP. There's a lot of unions that are involved in SLAP, and that's a good thing because SLAP is dealing with real critical issues. We're dealing with being gentrified, being changed, and being taken over. There's union paying jobs. Teachers are union too. ILW members are union. We have union jobs. We have things that we have BAs and we have business agents. We have people we can go to when we have concerns and questions about what's going on with the present system. If you take that power away and you give it to a charter system where maybe they don't have unions. They don't have nobody like the union system has to go to and talk to your business agent or something like that. That's not fair.
Daria, it's like to support the school to not make sure not close down. I don't know why they're trying to close the school, but it will hurt people because this is the closest school they could walk to.
Hi, my name is Joel Velasquez. I am a parent of 3, Oakland resident 30 years, and I live here in District 6, a few blocks away from Parker Elementary.
And there have been previous occupations. Why don't you talk about the other occupations?
So in 2012, there was a very similar situation where the school board said there was a budget deficit, and after a long year of trying to engage with the school board, the superintendent, even city council, they still decided to close 5 schools, which were the first of 30 schools in total. That's what OUSD wanted to do. And on the last day of the school, just like Aslina, we decided we're not leaving, and we took over the space and started a freedom school there on the last day of school, almost exactly 10 years ago.
What happened during that time?
During the sit-in? Well, there was a lot that happened. There was a lot of community engagement around discussions around public education. We created programs of Freedom School for kids during the summer there, Monday through Friday. We held events on the weekends to kind of talk about public education and what's happening with charters moving in
What's happening with the charters? How many charters?
Today or then? I don't remember.
Then and today.
I don't remember the exact number because it's been a decade, but I know today I think we're at 41 charters in Oakland, California. We have the highest number of charter schools per capita for the size of the district than any other city in the state of California.
It seems like they voted to shut down these schools at the same time they approved the expansion or new charters in Oakland?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a much larger conversation just to bring the national. This is something that's happening in every city across the nation right now and has been happening throughout the nation around attacks in black-owned communities, around closing schools and moving charters in. So it's not just Oakland.
And what is the relationship of the Port of Oakland to charters and privatization? The port.
I mean, I think there's a conversation there. I want to be very careful because I feel like I'm not as well versed around that issue, but what is common is that folks with private money want to take over kind of public land or public spaces like this and kind of turn it into something else that doesn't really benefit the community. I mean, that's kind of the general concept behind that. And look around where the space is at, right? I mean, I got a view of the entire Bay Area. We have houses up here that are $1 million houses. There are people that don't want to see an almost all-black school in the neighborhood, right? I mean, that's facts. But we can't be making decisions around real estate or those kind of things when we were talking about our public education system, that this is the only resource left in this community for black and brown students. I mean, this is it. This is the only resource. This is the space for this community to come together. And you take that away, what's left?
And in San Francisco, the school board there voted that they were going to get community school funding from Sacramento. They only laid off one person. Why is Oakland different? I mean, a lot of money is coming in from the state, from this community school program.
I mean, I think that's a good question. I can't speak around the dynamic around San Francisco and why they didn't receive it. Should they receive it? Absolutely yes, right? But I think for those listeners or folks listening to this that understands Oakland and San Francisco, there's definitely a different demographic here in Oakland, even though it has changed drastically in the last 10 years. Let's be very honest. Our black and brown African community has lessened or diminished in the last 10 years or plus. And some of those things, just to tie in to your question earlier, is that when you close a school in that neighborhood, parents don't have resources or cars to go to other parts of the city, so they sometimes have to physically leave. And there's also attrition with families in Oakland that if they don't have a school in their neighborhood, they have to move to another neighborhood, and then now they can't afford the rent. So this is bigger, it's deeper than what we're just talking about today.
And there's a $97 billion surplus in the state of California. The Democrats, you got Governor Newsom, Democrat, you got a supermajority of the Democratic Party in the legislature. Have Bonta, have Skinner said that this money should be used to the schools, to keep the schools open?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's the greatest point. In 2012, you asked, and now there's this lie that we're being told that there's a budget deficit. There wasn't then, there isn't one now. To your question, that money is now coming in from the state. The additional community school money is coming in at something around $61 million, exactly what you were just asking. So we got to start understanding that this is...
Why aren't these politicians speaking up about it? Why aren't they demanding that the legislature and Newsom make sure that the budgeting... They have massive, I mean, California is like 39th in public funding with all this massive money.
I've said that, I can't count. I mean, thousands of times. That's a great point. That California is one of the strongest economies in the world, not the nation, the world. But somehow we're almost still in the last, 40 plus on per pupil spending. That's a choice. We'd rather incarcerate our youth and spend $60,000+ to incarcerate them than spend money to educate them and give them an opportunity so don't end up in jails. That's a choice. And we have to say something that people don't want to talk about, I think, on the West Coast or in the Bay. That's racism. That's institutional racism. Like when you don't want to put the money where it's needed most in the communities, that's a choice. And when you talk about this action, communities and in the state of California and across the nation have to start getting out and talking about this. This is not an accident.
Well, who's raising this? I mean, are the politicians that represent Oakland raising this, Alameda County? You've got Democrats in charge of Alameda County. Are they making this a political issue? Why isn't this money going immediately to the schools?
I think that's a great question. I think we've accepted the status quo, and I think people have forgotten how to stand up for their own communities, and they accept this idea that there's not enough money in the state of California. That's beyond. It doesn't even pass the laugh test. We have money. We just don't choose to put it in our public education resources. And we're a better place to do that. We talk about crime. Look what happened to Chicago in 2012. 30 schools were closed when Lakeview was closed. And look at Chicago today, a decade later. Don't tell me that closing those schools and those black and brown communities didn't affect the entire city. So people need to wake up. This isn't about parents. This isn't about people with children. This affects our entire society. Come on now. Enough is enough. Let's stand up and start resourcing our public education system in a way that it should be so it benefits not just the communities in them, but our entire nation. Let's wake up. It's time.
And the massacres that are going on. It seems like there's an attack on teachers or attack on schools all over the country. What do you think? I mean, what's causing these massacres?
I think that's a much, much, much deeper question. But if I just say teachers have been attacked for a long time, let's just park something really quick. Our teachers they are literally our heroes. I'm a parent, I'm not a teacher. Every teacher that I know and I have ever come across in Oakland and across this state are heroes in our communities. They're doing things with minimal resources, and they're doing it with barely or livable wage. Let's be honest. We need to wake up and start paying our teachers what firefighters and our other police officers in our community make at a minimum. In my opinion, they should be even above that. Then we start treating this profession like it deserves. It is a profession, and it is the most important profession in our community, in our nation, on this planet, teaching our children.
So why is California 39th in funding for public education?
Look, even our school board, let's start here locally. Let's make a comment that we didn't talk about. Who paid for Gary Yee's campaign? That was private money. He received over $100,000 for his last campaign, and he doesn't listen to his constituents. He listens to the money and where it's coming from.
Who was that? Where was it coming from?
It's coming from super PACs, from Bloomberg, Go Public Schools, super PACs. They've been doing this for over a decade. I'm going to say almost 20 years now, but definitely for the last 3 to 4 terms on school board. School board used to go uncontested. No one cared about it. But now there's these policies from the Bill Gates Foundation, Go Public Schools, Waltons, Bloomberg that want to privatize education. And the money is pouring in so they can get their board candidates elected. And then they don't listen to the constituents, they listen to those policies and pass them. So that, to me, we can just leave it right there. It's local and it's national. The same thing is happening. It's money influencing our politics, right? And we got to say, when's enough? When's enough?
What about charter schools? You think that they should be publicly funded, privately run charter schools?
Charter schools are taking our public money. That's not if. That's what they're doing right now.
Do you think the charter school law should be repealed? You think that the principle of public money going to privately run schools, isn't that part of privatization?
Well, there's a tough question. I gotta put this out there first. Look, the students and the parents and admin at those school sites are not the problem. We need to stop letting billionaires come in and divide our communities, okay?
But that means that these billionaires are running these charter schools, like Kip, Fisher, Zuckerberg. They run these public schools. There was an effort in 2018 to repeal the charter school law. To say that if you want to have a school, a charter folded into being publicly run, would you support that law, that initiative? Because the charter schools are growing here. As you say, while they voted to close down these schools, 11 schools in Oakland, they did approve expansion and more charter schools in Oakland.
Yeah, there's a much bigger conversation here. I'm not trying to avoid, but there has to be some context here. We haven't had a conversation about our public education system changing to a privatized system. And look,
isn't that happening through charters?
That is happening. There's no oversight. Our board doesn't actually have control over charters. I'm going to be even a little bit more bold and careful how I say this. Again, the parents and the students are not part of this issue. It's the privatizers bringing the system into place. With that said, we shouldn't have a different system. We already have one. It's called public education and private.
So it's a two-tier system.
We have a 3-tier system now. We want to give public fundings to charter schools, let private money go into that, and they make a profit of it, and then we have no oversight or say over it. Look at New Orleans. Let's give some context. 10 years ago, right after Katrina, we said we're going to lose our public education in New Orleans. And what happened? There is no public school system right now. It is all charters. Kids are getting expelled from charters. Parents don't have a choice. They don't have no power. If someone comes up to a student or family and says, your child is not a good fit here, you have no protection. There's no democratic system to protect our communities and our families. That's dangerous.
So it's cherry picking?
You can call it that. I think it's even more than that. I think it's more. It is a dangerous system to look for. Even though we understand we have problems and things, we haven't. This closure thing and charter thing is a distraction to talking about institutional racism, institutional.
But isn't that what is happening in capitalism? I mean, privatization of the schools is part of profiteering and making money off the schools. Isn't that commodification of education?
Right. But this country and globally has to have a conversation. Do we want public education to be private, or do we want it to be public? And is that the greater good for our communities and our country or our state or our city? I'm one to believe that this is the space. This should be a public space. And I'm not going to shift from that. And I like the protections and the systems that's in place, but it's not representing us because billionaire private money is pouring into change policies in districts. So the people are not being heard. They're not being listened to. And that's why we're here today, because we're taking back that power.
I'm Alma DeLucchi. I'm a retired teacher, taught in 3 different states and ended up here in California. So my heart is in public schools. I went to public schools in Houston, Texas. And I just don't know how we're going to make it without public schools. I don't know what the plan is. And the plan that I've seen so far doesn't look too workable. I worked at Horace Mann for 8 years as a volunteer. I taught reading in my regular job, so I had several reading groups that I worked with to improve their reading skills. And I've been there ever since, and I just hate what's happening to our public schools. It's just that we need to put our foot down and say no more. You know, we're not standing for it. And those are the kids that need our help to be successful in their life. And I just felt so strongly about that, that I will always, as long as I can stand up and talk and teach reading, that was my specialty. And that's the one that most of our kids need help with. So I'm in it for the long run. Well, I believe this is an excellent example. We got people spending the night here to keep them from messing up. And their parents, they want the best for their kids. And every parent, whether you're rich or poor, you have children, you want the best for them. And I think that that's what this all shows, that parents are know the importance of having a community school where their kids can walk to school. And
their parents are worried about their kids getting killed.
Well, of course.
What's it like?
Well, it's scary. It's very scary. And I am scared too, you know, because they're vicious enough to close them. They might be vicious enough to follow up and do something, you know, really dangerous. So that's also a big concern. And the parents, you know, you got to work. Your kids, you depend on the public schools to, you know, to take care of your kids while you're at work. Here's a story for you. I was at Horace Mann. The secretary was away, so they called and asked me if I could come in and volunteer in the office, which I did. And they have a doorbell that you have to be answered before you can come in. And so the parent was just irate. Well, why does this have to be locked up? I said, well, your baby is in here. That's one reason it needs to be locked up. And I know you want that baby to have peace and harmony out of school. And so this is just a small step we're taking to make sure the kids are safe.
The massacres in Oliva and Buffalo, I mean, the racists, the guns, I mean, it seems like there's a slaughter going on of young people.
It's really a war. I believe that it's backlash. If you are thinking that you're the superior person and then you want your children to have the best, which they're not going to have it just because they're in a different neighborhood. The school district needs to make sure that schools are doing the job they need to do for the kids. Why wouldn't they want to have a community of people who are educated? And if you are a billionaire, you own a company or something, who's going to work for you? You're not going to even have people to work for you. So that's the part that is so frustrating, is that you have all this money. What more do you want? We just want a little money for our babies to go to school.
Guided by teeth goes this country. There's a cow's mouth on the flag. A peculiar notepad holds street life dear, but the writer's not here. He's somewhere talking to tombstones about the good old days of splashing reborn water on his latest face, or wondering how's old gun doing in the afterlife. Wondering how much death trap is in those gas station hours. It gotta be $1 million a day on this concrete island. New engine in the moon, why it never goes down. 72 straight hours of night, at least according to everyone's posture around here. 8:30 in the morning is really 30 minutes of closing. The city shuts down for a sleepy rat race, elevator shoe shuffle to the nearest heaven, laughing with rats the whole way up, there's scabs everywhere. in puddles of city, in concentrated schools, and TV lit warm rooms. The light reveals military fatigue when it hits just right on the ties that are wrapped around the necks of lazy white guys. Empire is too easy, baby. Chant at the walls all summer if you feel like it. Let's wait for a target to move and shooting back, running for a tree line made of freeways. Wisdom says against a war machine on Tuesday, you stand no chance. But may we be the last poor people to play it safe. Cow's mouth on the flag, a politician raises his hand, and the crowd shows their teeth. An oligarch raises his hand, and little kids are not safe outside. You all hide, depressed, and comrades in function. 15 minutes of closing and the city has survived another black rebellion. We just paying dues by trash fires, not just anybody can set. Hey, don't you love how deadly things whisper in the moment and people kill like feathers fall while everybody's screaming inside? The writer knows that death is not a matter of dignity, rather humor. In a house that smells like roach races, nuclear percentages on torn stoves. I mean, here life never was. Just lazy matches and manic inhumanity, hands rushing away from life towards stoves. What we doing here? Surviving for no reason in particular. Because nobody gone far today. Nobody go far tomorrow. Trust me, hell and heaven cannot count. Strange gardens where secondhand clothes play. And concrete wishes to be human so that it could be accountable. When they find you drenched. And drains wish to be human so that they could be worthy arms for you to die in. They greet them all, grandson.